I saw, oh, that's a picture of Ian Gav there. I saw Ian and Eric a couple of times after this, and then one day in June 2008, Ian called me and said that he'd been asked to cover a 5-day conference for BT at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. They needed a second photographer, and could I do it? Well, I did. And this is Ian in the hotel room. Sadly, a hard drive failure last year means that I don't have any more photographs for the trip, or any originals, but these are some low-res versions that were stored on mine. During the days, we photographed speeches and workshops. The surprise keynote speaker was Neil Armstrong. That's a photo from the conference. It sounds glamorous, and it was, but it was, to this day, the hardest work I've ever done. We were woken up at 7 o'clock every morning, and by 2 AM we were usually still awake editing. During all the hours in between, we were on our feet. Ian had a pedometer that told us one day we walked 10 miles, and that's without even leaving the building. The MGM Grand is huge, and getting from my room to the conference centre was a 20-minute walk every morning. The experience was undoubtedly a definitive week in my career. It taught me how to behave as a professional photographer, and the methodology of a professional photographer, which is much more than just taking good photographs. Early on, Ian teased me for chimping, which is when you take a photograph and then you look at look at it on the screen. Shoot now, edit later is one of the things he always told me, and I repeat that to myself in my head when I'm doing any fast-moving, high-pressure work. If you're looking at your camera, but the thing you were photographing is still happening around you, then you're missing things. One of the other things he told me is not to waste time. That the client, at least if it's a corporate client like BT, would never notice nuances of light and composition, so don't waste time trying to get the perfect shot. What they want is fast food, he said, and save the gourmet shots for yourself if you've got the time. But Ian and I are still in touch, and he's still working as a pro based in London. He shoots for Getty Images, and you can often see his stuff on the covers of the quality dailies. When I came back from Las Vegas, and without any steady income to rely on, the struggle to earn a living really began. For 2 years I scraped by, earning here and there, but mostly just building up lots of debt to banks and friends. Only in the past year have I started to live with the levels of comfort that most of my graduate friends enjoy, the ones that have found jobs anyway. And even then, they're secure in the knowledge that money's coming in every month, which I don't have. I don't want to do a thank you list, but I have to thank Wilson Wong, whose frequent loans and patience mean that I'm able to talk here today. Not that I'd be dead or anything, just but over the course of the past 3 years, the level of work that I get has steadily increased. But I never advertised in the traditional sense, and I never cold called anyone. So there are two main ways that I got work. Word of mouth, which I'll come back to, and Flickr. Although indirectly the Las Vegas job came to me because one day when I was 18 I joined a photo website. When I was 21, Infolio's membership dwindled, and Eric Hand suggested that I join Flickr, as he'd done. It was probably the best thing I've done for my career. Flickr is a photo sharing website used by everyone, from ordinary people sharing photographs of their families to world-renowned professionals. Some of them use it as a portfolio website, some just as a blog. I know a lot of photographers who consider Flickr unprofessional and look down on it somewhat, but to my mind that's bad business sense. Since I first joined, I consistently put a lot of time and effort into Flickr. At first this was just because I enjoyed it, but before long I began to make money from Flickr, sometimes directly. A company or a magazine would send me a message asking if they could use a photograph and how much it would cost. And sometimes indirectly, someone would come up to me in a bar, tell me that they'd seen my Flickr and they liked it, and then a month later they would email me and say, I need some photos for this or that, and so on. It wasn't until the summer of 2009 that I fully realised the extent of the opportunities that Flickr could offer. One day a businessman in Denmark saw a short film online made by a young French filmmaker and telephoned him to say, I'm making a music video in Hong Kong, I want you to come up with a concept and direct it, the budget's £100,000. This French filmmaker, Jean-Julien Pu, he in turn did a search on Flickr for Hong Kong night, and he came across my Flickr stream that way. I should explain that my dad is Chinese and I have family and friends in Hong Kong, so I visit there once every year or two. It's my favourite place in the world, and it's where I've taken many of what I consider to be my best work. So Jean-Julien emailed me and asked me if I'd be the set photographer for the music video. After 3 weeks of negotiations about logistics and fees with the Danish producer, I was given the go-ahead and flown out to Hong Kong to work for 2 weeks. It produced some of the most creatively rewarding work I've ever done. Oh, sorry, that's just another Hong Kong snap. That's not from the music video. Yeah, so this was part of the music video, a chase sequence car and the 3 band members. That's in the green screen studio. That's the Danish businessman there. And that's filming on the streets one night. I worked with Jean-Julien again in Rotterdam a few months later, and the cinematographer that I worked with in Hong Kong emailed me a few months later and asked me if I'd photograph his wedding in Buckinghamshire. That's where this photograph was taken. And for all these working experiences, Flickr is to thank. As I've said, I make a lot of effort with Flickr. I update almost daily. I engage with the people who comment on my work, and I join groups and I comment honestly on other people's work. This paid off again in October last year. In Singapore, a production company was making a television show about photography called The Big Shot. It took the format of America's Next Top Model. A group of photographers given a challenge every week, and each week one of them is judged and eliminated until at the end they have a winner. Some of the people who applied to be on the show were people who follow my work on Flickr, and they put me down on the application form as a photographer that they admire. Seeing my name on the form a few times, the producers looked me up and asked me if I'd be a judge on the show. So a month later, I was sitting in the studio alongside people like Gunther Deichmann on the left there. His work's been on graced the covers of Time magazine, National Geographic, that kind of thing. So I mean, it's really worth repeating. Flickr has been the most important tool in my career, and I think anyone who looks down on it is foolish. Ian Gav once joked about the shots that have become something of a trademark, or less kindly a gimmick or a cliche. For me, this kind of thing, basically. He said, "It's all very well taking pictures of your friends smoking, but they'll never pay the bills." I thought he was right until I received an email from Leo Burnett, one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world, the agency that created the Jolly Green Giant, Tony the Tiger, and the Marlboro Man. They'd seen my pictures of people smoking and asked me if I would, about the possibility of coming out to Chicago to shoot a campaign for Marlboro. In the end, the campaign didn't go ahead, but the point of the story is that advertising and design agencies, whether ones whose clients are local businesses or their clients are multinational conglomerates, they browse Flickr looking for talent. And the most important thing for a freelance photographer is to get your work seen, and Flickr is the best place I know for doing that. It's not the only place though. I take advantage of anything I can. I started a Twitter account for the sole purpose of sharing my work. I don't know half the people that Facebook calls my friends, but I accept the requests because one day they might need a photographer and remember the guy that keeps posting photo updates. And I've had a few commissions that were initiated by Facebook messages, like, "I saw you tagged a photo of my friend Ryan, I liked it, could you take photos for this or this?"